They were 12 years old, bright yellow ribbons in their hair. They smiled with Mickey Mouse arms around him, a moment frozen in time. But when their mother returned just minutes later, they were gone. Vanished in the middle of Disneyland. No scream, no struggle, no goodbye. The photo was the last proof they had ever existed. And nearly 3 decades later, when workers uncovered something buried beneath the park, beneath the very place where millions of people walk every year, the truth started to emerge. And it wasn't magical. Before we unravel this unnerving decades-old puzzle, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because some stories take years to find the ending. This one starts with smiles and ends with silence. The family behind the story. The Zhao family had just begun anew in California. Mei Ling Zhao, a solo parent from Guangzhou, had immigrated to the United States in 1982 after a workplace fire took her husband's life. With 2 daughters, identical twins, Xiao Mei and Xiao Lan, she worked night shifts in a fabric plant, pinching every penny for her girls. By 1985, Mei Ling had a single mission to give the twins a birthday. They'd never forget. Disneyland, California, the most enchanting destination in America. They arrived at the park on July 15, 1985. It was hot, crowded, but perfect. The twins were dressed identically pink t-shirts with sparkles across the chest, light blue denim overalls, spotless white shoes, and those matching yellow ribbons that Mei Ling had tied herself that morning. They lit up with joy, holding hands, skipping through the park like every ride was a dream. By all accounts, it was one of the happiest days of their lives until 3:07 p.m. The last photo they were in Tomorrowland when they saw him, Mickey Mouse, one of the cast members in full costume. He was animated, waving, hugging kids, shaking hands. Xiao Mei squealed with excitement. Xiao Lan, quieter but equally thrilled, pulled on her mom's arm. "Picture," she whispered. Mei Ling agreed. She snapped 3 photos, the last of which would become infamous, the twins standing on either side of Mickey, both beaming. What happened next is still a matter of bitter debate. Mei Ling excused herself to the restroom, not 100 ft away. And by her own account, the Mickey character nodded and mimed, staying with the girls. Other guests later confirmed seeing him interact with them, even laughing and walking slowly in a small circle, as if entertaining them. When Mei Ling returned, the space was empty. No twins, no Mickey, nothing but echoes. The fear sets in. At first it was disbelief. Maybe they'd run off to another character. A shop arrived. Then it became confusion. Then fear. Mei Ling scoured wildly for 10 minutes before alerting a staff member. By 3:30 p.m., Disney's security stepped in. Rides in the surrounding area were paused. Announcements were made. Staff spread quickly. Witnesses came forward with only fragments. I saw the girls following Mickey toward the arcade. They were near the Space Mountain Tunnel. There was a second Mickey near the fountain. Surveillance cameras in 1985 were limited. There was no live feed, no park-wide facial recognition, and only grainy low-frame footage from fixed angles. No video ever showed the twins exiting. No one matching Mickey's full costume was seen leaving. And then came the worst detail. The performer assigned to that Mickey suit during the 2:33 p.m. shift never returned to the staff rotation. They simply vanished. The investigation. Anaheim police launched one of the most intensive searches in the city's history. Disney executives, terrified of the PR fallout, cooperated, fully supplying staff rosters, costume checkouts, and security badge logs. But there was one glaring issue all the cast members accounted for that day were cleared. The Mickey that Fernandez saw didn't match any employee costume rotation. His suit was different, slightly faded. His gloves were stitched at the fingertips, not regulation. His height didn't match anyone on staff. Someone had impersonated Mickey Mouse and walked into the park unnoticed. The FBI was brought in. Dozens of other Mickey costume sightings were traced and interviewed, but the one man, the one who posed with the Zhao twins in that photo, was never found. A cold case frozen in time. As weeks turned to months, the case cooled. No bodies, no ransom notes, no credible suspects, just a grieving mother and a blurry image. The media dubbed them the Disneyland twins. The case gained widespread coverage, triggering discussions about child safety park surveillance and costume impersonation loopholes. But without leads, everything stalled. Mei Ling never left California. She never agreed to pronounce the girls legally dead. Every year, on July 15th, she left 2 yellow ribbons outside the park entrance. Every year, she waited. And for 28 years, nothing changed until 2013. Part 2, The Head in the Drain. In February 2013, Disneyland was preparing for its newest attraction, a next-gen overhaul of Tomorrowland. The project required extensive underground work, including the removal of legacy drainage systems that hadn't been touched since the early 1980s. Just past midnight on February 17th, 2 contracted workers were removing rubble from a sealed concrete drain shaft beneath a utility corridor. The passage, narrow and poorly lit, hadn't been mapped on any modern blueprint. At Toth 12 now a.m., one of the workers called it in his voice, reportedly trembling. We found something human. What they found would reopen one of the darkest files in Anaheim police archives. What the earth gave back, jammed within a rusted metal grate, concealed under decades of grime and runoff, was a severed human head, mummified by arid conditions and encased in a faded rubber mask. The mask was unmistakable. Mickey Mouse, not a replica, not a toy, but a full-size Disney character mask, custom molded, professional grade, fused to human remains. Forensics confirmed the impossible. The human tissue inside the Mickey head belonged to a male in his late 40s, likely deceased since the mid-1980s. There was no jaw, no identification, only a small fragment of bone near the orbital socket. A forensic artist digitally reconstructed the face, and what emerged bore striking resemblance to a former Disney cast member who had vanished in 1981, a man named David Kramer, a former costume technician with an impeccable record. Who was David Kramer? David Kramer had once worked as a part-time cast performer in Disneyland from 1979-1981. Known for his punctuality and reserved demeanor, he vanished from his apartment with no sign. At the time, no foul play was suspected. Authorities assumed he'd moved or joined a traveling entertainment show, but his file had never officially been closed. And now his severed head was beneath Disneyland, wearing the suit he used to perform in. But the timing didn't match. Kramer vanished in 1981. The Zhao twins went missing in 1985, which raised a terrifying question. If Kramer was dead, who wore the Mickey costume that lured the twins away? Back to the beginning, Inspector Carmen Rivera, a newly promoted homicide detective who had studied the Zhao file in college, was brought in to lead the reopened case. She re-examined the original 1985 park photos, including the famous image of the twins hugging Mickey. She zeroed in on a single detail, the glove stitching, odd frayed and non-regulation. That same stitching style matched an archived police photo of Kramer in his costume from 1980. And there was something else. One guest photo, taken by an unrelated family, just minutes before the twins vanished, showed Mickey standing still in the background, but his eyes weren't facing the camera. They were turned sideways watching the twins. Part 3, The Costume Room. 2 weeks after the discovery of David Kramer's head beneath the drain shaft, Inspector Rivera received a tip that shifted the entire investigation. An anonymous letter postmarked from Santa Ana arrived at the Anaheim Police Department. It was typed, unsigned, and sealed in a plain white envelope. The message read, The others are still below behind the old prop cellar, door 3C. Ask for the keys Disney never logged. It sounded like nonsense or a hoax. But Disney's internal security archives did reference a forgotten area known as the prop cellar. Once used for storage in the 1970s, before being shut down during a fire code revision, it had been locked for over 30 years. Door 3C, on March 5, 2013. Accompanied by park security and forensics, Inspector Rivera entered the sublevel corridor beneath Adventureland, a region marked off limits since 1986 due to seismic retrofitting. They found door 3C painted black, rusted hinges, no record of its existence on current facility blueprints. When forced open, it revealed a chilling space. Dust-covered mannequins, prop coffins from Haunted Mansion, rotting wooden crates labeled Fantasyland 1975, and in the back, a row of garment bags hanging from an oxidized pipe. Inside the bags, 5 full character suits: Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Goofy, and one costume that never officially existed. A darkened Mickey Mouse variant, muted colors, longer gloves, wider eyes. It wasn't designed for performance. It was built to disguise a person in plain sight. Evidence left to rot. Forensics collected fibers, traced DNA and samples from all 5 costumes. The strange Mickey suit contained something else: human hair, bone fragments, a partial myrrh belonging to a child estimated to be 10 to 13 years old. Testing confirmed it was a match to Xiaolan Zhao. After 28 years, her presence had been confirmed, not in the park, not in a grave, but sealed inside the lining of a costume meant to entertain. But there was no sign of Xiao Mei. Rivera began to suspect what no one wanted to say out loud. There may not have been one imposter. There may have been a group. Part 4. Room 0. It began with a confession. 3 weeks after the discovery of the hidden costume room, an anonymous email was sent to Inspector Rivera's personal department address. No name, no traceable IP, just one line. Room 0 was real. I was there in 1985. The twins were not the first. Attached was a fuzzy photo, what looked like a concrete hallway, poorly illuminated with cartoon decals peeling from the walls. At the end, a thick steel door. Faintly visible stenciling above it read RZ or Zorba 1. Disney had no record of any location labeled Room 0, but longtime maintenance staff recalled rumors of a pilot storage tunnel built beneath the original Fantasyland during the late 1970s, a dead-end construction project abandoned and sealed after budget cuts. If Room 0 existed, it wasn't meant for guests. It wasn't even meant for employees. The descent. On April 11, 2013, under tight security, Rivera and a forensics team followed an access path buried beneath a maintenance lift near It's a Small World. The passage was narrow and lined with crumbling plaster. Every few feet, cartoon faces were painted over exposed wires, their smiles fading in the damp. At the end stood the door from the photo. Arzette Niladon. It was cold to the touch, locked by 3 deadbolts. When forced open, the stench hit them first. Mold, dust, rot. The space inside was roughly 30 ft wide, lit by old fluorescent tubes, still wired into emergency backup power. In the center was a rusted metal table bolted to the floor, and on the wall, 8 names scrolled in faded marker. 6 crossed out, 2 not. The uncrossed names, Xiaolan, Xiao Mei. What they found inside scattered across the room were decayed fabric scraps, children's shoes, and an old Realtor tape player. When powered on, it emitted a series of looping audio clips, snippets of Disney songs distorted and slowed beyond recognition. Some staff reported hearing a second voice layered beneath the music whispering. Others claimed it called their name. In one corner, they found a trap door, sealed but not empty. Inside was a deteriorated wooden box, padded with insulation foam. wrapped in an old Space Mountain t-shirt, was a child's fear. DNA testing confirmed it belonged to Xiaomei Zhao. She had been beneath the park for 28 years, unmarked, unmourned, stored. The one who knew with media frenzy mounting a former Disneyland security supervisor came forward under witness protection. He claimed that in the early 1980s, costumed anomalies had been reported in the park after hours characters walking alone refusing to speak, sometimes entering restricted areas without keys. When security footage was reviewed, those figures never appeared on camera, but witnesses swore they saw them. Some believed it was pranksters. Others feared something worse. The supervisor confirmed Room 0 had been hushed out of existence after a child vanished in 1981, and that suits were quietly destroyed. Or so they thought. Someone had kept one and used it again. Part 5. The face behind the mask. After weeks of silence, the break came unexpectedly. A 63-year-old man named Walter Hines was arrested on an unrelated trespassing charge in Bakersfield. During booking, fingerprints flagged an old sealed file, a former Disneyland maintenance subcontractor from 1980 to 1986. When questioned about his whereabouts in July 1985, Hines became erratic. He mentioned the tunnels asked for his costume and muttered, "Mickey was never meant to bleed." Investigators obtained a warrant to search his rural home. What they found ended the case. The archive room, hidden behind a false wall in Hines's basement, was a private museum of horror. Polaroids of children inside character dressing rooms, fragments of vintage Disney costumes, including dark Mickey gloves, sound recordings labeled training audio, voices distorted and stacked over carousel music, and most damning of all, a diary. Inside the diary were entries dated from 1981 to 1985. One dated July 16th, 1985 read, "The twins were perfect. They smiled. They trusted me. The tunnels are mine now. Room 0 keeps secrets. He called it his kingdom. He saw himself not as a man, but as a character. The park forgot the final door." One last search was ordered this time beneath a long sealed section of the original tunnels. Hines had drawn maps. One passage stood out: the mirror room. It was real. Behind a rusted panel, they found a chamber lined with one-way mirrors, surveillance glass facing out into various ride queues. Abandoned decades ago, the room held decaying furnishings, a broken intercom, and shreds of character fabric pinned to corkboard. This was where Hines had watched, where he'd picked the children he wanted to follow. Xiao Mei and Xiao Lan hadn't been the first. They were just the ones no one could ignore. Aftermath: Hines was ruled unfit for trial, institutionalized, silent. Fernand Zhao passed away in 2016, 2 years after finally burying her daughters. Room 0 was sealed permanently. The park denied any knowledge of its purpose. But employees still whisper about the tunnels and the time Mickey smiled, just a little too wide. Do you believe Hines was the only one? Or was he protecting something larger? Something still beneath the park. Let us know what you believe. And if this story stayed with you, like, subscribe, and turn on the bell, because there are still places no map will lead you to. And sometimes the happiest place on earth is hiding the darkest ones.